Well, they've had a bit of good publicity in recent years with romances, weddings and the like, but the royal family going through a bit of a difficult period at the moment with all the controversy about Meghan Markle and some of the criticisms there. And now, of course, Prince Andrew, this interview over the weekend, highlighting a lot of people's concerns about his arrogance and lack of empathy for victims here of Jeffrey Epstein, his former friend. Joining me on the set now from the Australians for the Constitutional Monarchy is Professor David Flint. Thanks for joining us, David. You must be concerned every time the royal family attracts this sort of negative reaction.
Oh, yes. But of course, it's the system which is the important thing, not the individuals. But in this case, going into the media wasn't going to change anything. The British media are very hostile to Prince Andrew. They always present a line that the members of the royal family are dependent on the British taxpayers. They know that's not true. They know the royal family is self-funded, but they've never published it.
They get an annual allocation of money from taxpayers.
No, that money comes from the Crown Estate. The Crown Estate gives the money to the Chancellor. The Chancellor takes 75%. He was originally going to take 85%, but they realised the palaces are so run down, they've got to use some of their own money for this. So they're taxed at the effective rate of 75%.
It's a public system, their own future fund, if you like. But the point here about Prince Andrew is he does have some specifically difficult questions to answer. He's made a hash of answering them. And the point is, of course, that won't affect his job. He's still a prince for life, right?
He's a prince for life. But the fact is, the presumption of innocence in sexual abuse cases has changed and is particularly bad for male, heterosexual, white men.
You're not defending Jeffrey Epstein, surely? He was a convicted sex offender and obviously died while he was facing other charges.
Not in the slightest. He confessed to his offences. But still, the presumption of innocence has changed. We've even seen judicial tendencies to want to change that in relation to sexual claims, particularly against white male heterosexuals. The other thing is, all of this is purely a backdrop to the American civil litigation system. And that's not run now for justice. It's run to enrich the American lawyers.
Well, look, there are issues there about the Me Too movement and some trial by media issues that are existent across Australia, the UK, other democracies. But we'll carry on with that conversation. Let's just have a look first at some of that interview that Prince Andrew gave.
Do I regret the fact that he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming? Yes.
Unbecoming? He was a sex offender.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm being polite, in the sense that he was a sex offender.
Unbecoming. That was a particularly sensitive part of the interview, David, where people are saying, well, he didn't show a very severe attitude to what Jeffrey Epstein has done. The other criticism has been he hasn't shown a lot of empathy for victims. And, of course, when it comes to the allegation against himself, there is a young lady who says she had sex with him when she was 17. And he has denied that. Is his denial plausible? Will this allegation go any further? That comes to the heart of your queries about the balance of the burden of proof.
Good. Conduct unbecoming is used in military circles, and it means something very serious. It's sufficient to have you marched out of the military. It sounds soft to a civilian, but he comes with a military background, so he would mean that in a more serious way than we would. But getting back to the situation, there are claims against him. These are civil claims in the American system, which encourages these claims to the extent that these are done at no risk. The lawyers get an enormous percentage of anything they get, including those on settlements. So they usually get a lot of money just by making a claim. The person who makes the claim suffers no risk, as you do in Australia, because costs are never awarded against you. And in the American system, they've taken away any right to sue for defamation in relation to public figures. So it's all loaded against somebody who's involved in it. He's not directly involved so far. He would be an alleged witness in a civil case. The case is essentially against the Epstein estate, and those who were wronged should be awarded costs money from the Epstein estate.
Indeed, indeed. And look, that gets to the complexities of all this, but do you think he's done himself a service or a disservice by doing this 50-minute long interview?
Well, if he'd asked me, I would have advised him not to. I don't think it's... going right back to George V, George V took the view that members of the royal family do not give interviews. And he was very critical of the later Queen Mother when she gave a purely social interview to a social magazine. And I think it's wise in circumstances like this not to go into the media, because the media is hostile in Britain. The media's, they've decided he is guilty. So what would be the point of trying to persuade them something else? You couldn't.
Well, let's be agnostic about the allegations concerning him for a moment then and say that, yeah, if your concern is trial by media, what he's done is fuel it.
Yes, I don't think it was a wise idea, in the same way that I don't think it was wise for Prince Charles to go into the media in response to Diana going into the media. I think it would have been better, from his point of view, to have not done that, but these are matters for advisers. One is always free. You're always free to say what you want to say.
Indeed, indeed.
And there is a time, though, when it's better to say nothing.
Now, speaking of Charles, he and Camilla have just landed in New Zealand, apparently. They're not going to come across the ditch and see us. That's a bit unusual, isn't it?
Well, how appropriate for the future King of New Zealand to go to New Zealand. But he's been here. He's been here within very recent times and no doubt will come again. So I know you very much want to see Prince Charles here in Australia.
Never met him and don't harbour an ambition, I'm afraid. Thanks very much for joining us,
A pleasure.
Professor.